Hey! I'm Cooper.
And I'm Karen.
You're listening to
You Want Me to Do What?
A conversation between a millennial trainer, that's me, and his boomer client.
That's me.
As we take our gym floor conversations to the recording studio.
Listen in our informative conversations where we'll guide you through 4 phases of habit change, from contemplation to maintenance and beyond.
Through each episode, learn about the intersection of generations and discover how, at the end of the day, we're more similar than we realize.
Grab a front row seat to our sometimes hilarious stories about our personal experiences as we move through each phase.
Join us as we reflect on our unlikely friendship, our cultural differences, and certainly that big age gap.
We hope you see it's never too early or too late to be your best self. So if you're considering making changes to your health or fitness, or you've already started, this podcast is certainly for you. Welcome.
So last time in episode 3, Help Me Understand, we continued our discussion on preparation and determination, the second phase of our behavior change conversation. We highlighted the pros of having access to resources on health and wellness, and we made sure that you guys were also aware of the kind of dangers you can come across on social media that can kind of lead you down
a rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's right.
Particularly if you're impatient or you think you're going to find that miracle one-shot thing.
Yeah, and we also pointed out how you can also kind of find your tribe.
Yes.
Across your socials.
There is some good stuff out there in social media. I know it gets a bad rap, but there's some good stuff out there, particularly if you're somebody who's venturing into doing things completely opposite than you've always done them, which is where, like, our boomers, my people, kind of come in at. You know, we're learning how to eat and how to be active in ways that we really just didn't have that much information on before.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a crazy thing to think about because I don't know a difference.
Exactly.
The information's always been there for me.
I mean, you guys have so much just readily available at your fingertips that we are now just getting access to. Yeah. That it's really unbelievable. It's a different world.
And you brought up a really good point about how it started out as a way of providing information, and now it's turning kind of into more about just, you know, entertainment and, like, you know, challenges and stuff like that.
That's what's kind of at the forefront, is everything that's just there for, like, you know, what they say, shits and giggles. But there's a lot of serious information out there that you can find on your own. And like you said, your tribe, there are people out there who are at the same place you are in life, who are starting the same thing you're starting in life. And that's really nice when you connect with them. Yeah. That's a wonderful thing.
But I also forgot to mention, and I want to mention now before we continue, about the growing presence of what's kind of called edutainment channels.
Yeah, I never heard that until you said it to me the other day, and I was like, that is exactly what's kind of happened, what it's morphed into.
Yeah, I mean, and the really kind of easiest one to reference is Planet Earth.
Okay.
That Netflix series. It's like you're learning about, you know, different habitats and animals, but, like, it's entertaining. Yeah. Because, like, the cinematography is really good, and David Attenborough is a treasure, and all that stuff. But now you have access to other outlets that are free. Some of my personal favorites are, you know, Religion for Breakfast, the Fall of Civilization podcast, and then all the theorists channels. So the game theory, food theory, film theory.
And it's cool because you are really learning true, like, valid information. It's not nonsense or anything. I mean, you're really learning.
They're applying, like, you know, science and math to, like, video games or, like, examining, like, food and recipes and stuff.
And what a nice way to absorb something new. Yeah. Where it's presented that way. It really makes it fun to sit and absorb something that otherwise you might be intimidated or scared of or even bored to read about.
Right. So it makes information you might learn in school or on the classroom, but more entertainment and less stiffy.
And that's kind of neat. That's a neat thing. That's a neat thing about the
so I thought that was pretty cool, and I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware, that we are also aware that there are other things in social media that are coming up besides entertainment. So you can combine both.
Edutainment. I really think that's awesome. So in today's episode, little by little, a little becomes a lot. we're going to move into phase 3. And phase 3 is finally when you take action. And it's also where it addresses this whole myth or, this argument about willpower. This is all about taking action to change whatever that behavior is. You've decided that, okay, this is the thing I'm going to focus on. Where you're taking the steps to become your best self, to prepare yourself to, your mindset for change. And now you're ready to actually go ahead and make it happen. So at this point, if you're in phase 3, you're actively involved in taking steps to modify your current lifestyle, and you're modifying it towards, what you want to be in the long run. And that could be maybe you're doing some meal planning. Maybe you just decided you're going to take a walk after dinner every night. You're in action. Whatever that first thing is, you've started it. But Coop, I've also heard that this can be the shortest of all stages. The amount of time that someone could spend can be 6 months or as little as an hour. So how is that possible that you're in action for an hour? Because I get a little confused about that.
Yeah, it does sound odd because, action, to you might mean you're doing the things.
Yeah, like you're doing them. But I know when I saw that it could go for 6 months or for an hour, that kind of threw me.
So we want to think about action not as much about the doing of the things,
okay,
but more of the initiation of the doing the things. So if I can put this in storytelling terms,
okay,
phase 3 is kind of like the inciting incident of the journey. So like it's the moment that Luke Skywalker decides to go with Obi-Wan to learn to become a Jedi.
He moved into action.
Right, so that
because he wants to become a Jedi.
That decision is action, and then everything else after that is, maintenance. Because you are maintaining the decision that you made.
And that confused me so much when we were first talking about what these phases actually are. And I was just like, what do you mean? So I think I kind of get it now. So the action phase is that instant that you think, I've done my research, I'm ready to put things in motion. That's action. Okay. Boom. You've pressed the big red button.
It's understandable why you would get them confused with maintenance.
Right.
Which is going to come up later. But the action phase is that, right, well, I've done the research. I'm ready to put things into motion. And then as soon as you say I'm ready and then you do the action, that's it.
Whatever that is.
You've pushed the big red button. You've pulled the lever and are plummeting down the water slide.
Okay.
So action can be anything from hiring a trainer.
Yeah.
Buying a Peloton, joining a gym, signing up for a 5K, or maybe entering a Spartan race. Wink, wink. Go Spartans. The list can go on. This is probably the most fun you'll have as you are becoming your best version of yourself because it's tangible. You can feel what you're doing.
Okay.
It's new, it's exciting, it's fun. So it could be, kind of akin to cleaning the house, organizing stuff, clearing out clutter.
Which some people find to be a tremendous amount of fun.
Yeah, that's action.
And very satisfying.
You're getting catharsis from that.
Yes.
It could even be, like that new TV smell or that fresh computer you pull out of the plastic, those feelings of dopamine that we get when we are stepping into something new.
It is exciting when you're like, for me, when I started change, besides, starting to hire a trainer and everything, what I did at home was reorganizing the kitchen for meal prep and doing my food shopping. That was very exciting for me to make sure that I had what I needed, to start to change my diet, accessible to me in the house, where I didn't have to stress about what was going to be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's exciting to me. My sister is always like, oh my God, I can't believe you like going to the supermarket. I love going to the supermarket. I literally love it because it's like, it's all the meals that I'm going to have that week. But I find that fun. Some people are like, you crazy? I just order it and pick it up, drive in and they put it in the trunk. I'm like, I could never do that. I've got to touch it, smell it, see it, That's my action, and that gets me excited.
And you notice you don't just do that the one time.
No,
right?
It's every week.
You don't go to the grocery store just the once, and that's the one action, but you're repeating the same action, right? So technically, that's a part of your maintenance now.
And
right?
see, that's what might be confusing when people hear the word maintenance. It's as if you've obtained something already, which I guess. And it's not attaining it or making it have already happened. It's actually just consistency almost.
It's continuing to do it. So
continuing to do it.
Maybe a year or so ago when you went back to the grocery store with a new list or something of the foods you wanted to get, like that was the initiation of the new plan you wanted.
Right.
And every subsequent one after that is just maintaining the original action.
Got it. So folks, when you're thinking about these phases, phase 3, the action phase is just doing the thing that you decided that was going to be part of your changing.
Right.
So if you're in action, you're like taking that walk. Maybe you've gotten the Peloton. You're ordering your groceries so you'll have the proper meals. That makes sense to me now.
And you can have multiple actions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So maybe the first action step is just to go out for a walk for 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And then you take another action and then you bump it up to 20 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. So you're always building off of what you did before.
Right.
But then you're maintaining what you started.
That building word is just truth. This is a very gradual day-to-day process of behavior change.
Mm-hmm.
It really is something that is going to come over weeks and months and hours and days of time. And to that word building is literally how you should look at approaching any change that you want to make. Is just building on making it better, doing it more consistently over a pretty significant amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
It really is about building. That's not something that comes straight away.
And you'll hear a lot about this phase being, like you'll hear motivation a lot with this.
You'll hear willpower a lot.
And willpower.
Let's talk about that.
And it's not so much that, you need to be constantly motivated to do something or
because
constantly
you won't be.
Excited.
It's impossible.
It just
doesn't happen.
Right, because like I mentioned earlier, the excitement and the newness of the thing is what initially spurs you to do it.
Right.
Right? But once you have been doing it for a little while, the newness goes away.
Like everything.
And then you need to continue to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to go back into the previous phases.
Right.
So you need to remember that you're trying to build a structure of a system to continue the action you've already been doing. So like in your research phase, you should have been, looking up things that, you like to do and then having a plan. Enacting on the plan is the action part.
And being realistic about it all. Like having a plan that, only works when you're highly motivated is not a plan. Just do a plan that works in your life.
Yeah, you can't rely on that motivation or willpower, that excitement to sustain you the whole time.
No.
It'll come and go, right? There are some weeks that you'll be, not motivated and other weeks where you'll be really motivated. Which is why it's really important for you to find things that you like to do.
It's so important. I mean, when we say this, it's like, just don't sign up for things that you don't look forward to. Don't eat in a way that you don't enjoy.
Yeah.
Don't do anything that you don't feel is you. Like you're like, I'm just going to do this for this time frame and it's going to get me here. And I don't know, but it's just going to get me here. Just do it so it's part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that just makes maintaining it that much more organic.
Yeah.
And makes it smoother for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be up and down and all around like a roller coaster. None of this is going to pan out the first month, 2, 3, or 4 even. It might be 6, 8, 12, 17 months to get one action you're doing to the point where it's literally consistent.
Mm-hmm. Because regardless of whether or not you are motivated to do it, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
The point is you're doing it because it's getting you towards something you want to achieve.
Yes, and that's the North Star, is like it's moving me more towards something I really want as opposed to me staying stuck.
So it doesn't matter whether or not you want to do it or you're motivated to do it. You're doing it because
it's pushing you in a direction.
Hopefully you like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're doing it because you know it's going to serve a purpose that you know is greater than the dread or whatever you're experiencing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of times, I'll have like friends or family or whatever be like, oh, I don't want to go to work tomorrow, or and I'm just like,
and
quit.
That's going to happen.
I mean, jokingly, I say quit.
No.
But I don't think I've ever said, I don't want to go to work tomorrow.
Well, because you're doing something that you enjoy so much.
Right. Or
and you get so much from, not just personally, but you're helping people, which clearly is important to you. Now,
I may have, mentally or internally thought, like I have to get up in the morning. Like, I don't want to get up in the morning.
That's normal.
But, I would never like express that, discomfort, because I know that what I'm doing is serving more than just me.
Right. You're lucky that you found that at this early stage in your life.
Yeah.
That you're very lucky. Sometimes you got to try a whole bunch of things for work, because you got to make money.
Yeah.
And to land on that thing that makes you feel like people say if you like what you're doing, you're never working or it doesn't feel like work. Sometimes it takes a half of your life to figure that out, to sort that out.
Yeah.
So you're just fortunate that you landed on it.
Yeah.
Early.
And I know those people, who complain about going to work tomorrow, like, they're doing it half-heartedly, seriously. They're not actually, complaining. They're just saying it to complain.
Well, I mean, no, there are people who are straight up complaining. I have lots of friends who straight up complain. They're counting the days till they can retire.
Yeah.
It just goes either way. That's a personal thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that just makes me sad.
That's more the reality for people than not. Just saying. Stick around.
Well, if you're in phase 2 or phase 3, regarding fitness at least, try and avoid, doing something that you don't like doing.
Yeah, just don't. Like, honestly, it's hard enough. It's hard enough just showing up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So definitely don't drag yourself to something when you get there you really don't even want to do it, because you're just not going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be consistent with that. And the consistency is like the name of this game. It really is. I mean, habit change is about just doing something new all the time. Just like the habit you're trying to change that you've been doing all the time. Mm-hmm. But now it's a conscious effort as opposed to just like environmental or how you were raised or, your people in your house. Now you're consciously wanting to move and change something. So consistency is just the name of the game. That's what you're working towards.
Yeah.
I would say that more so than just goals. It's just being consistent in whatever that action is you said you wanted to take to get what you want.
And even if you're beyond the action phase and you've been healthy for a really long time and whatever, and you're deciding to make a change, right? You are going back to do another kind of action. So like for me, I had been weight training for a long time. And as of recently, I decided to step on stage next year for my first bodybuilding show. So my inciting incident, right, my moment, was the realization that I needed something different to challenge me and stimulate more gains.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I needed something new to like reinvigorate my passion. Yeah. It kind of felt like I was just kind of going through the motions.
Because now you're at that consistency phase where you're just consistent. I mean, I watch you. I see you. You're a professional. You just do it. You the way you eat, the way you exercise. It's who you are.
We're definitely going to talk more about that in a few episodes. Mm-hmm. But it can be monotonous.
It absolutely is going to be monotonous.
The structure can be, it can get old. So you need little spices of action to kind of remind you of why you're doing these things. Yeah. And for me, this was hiring a bodybuilding coach and a posing coach was kind of that for me, because my whole time I had always been the one to write my own workouts. Wow. I never had someone write it for me.
So how different is that?
So it is very different having someone else write my workouts for me, because there were some things that were programmed that I would never program for myself.
Wow.
Because either I thought they were like too hard or I didn't recognize that they served a purpose.
Interesting.
So, when on the form I fill out every week, when my coach is like, what was challenging? And I answer, and I'm like, mostly because I wouldn't do this for myself. It was definitely evident to me after this is my 4th week, finished my 4th week of the new program. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I can already see a difference in my physique.
Right.
Only after a month.
Isn't that crazy?
And I'm a trained athlete, 5+ years.
So speaking of moving into action, I recently decided that I needed some more help getting me to some goals that I had, specifically when it came to nutrition, healthier eating, and definitely losing weight. And this person that we're going to talk to today our guest today is who I am working with at the Y that I attend. She's our nutritionalist.
Wait, what? We have guests?
Yeah, we have guests!
Bet you weren't expecting that.
Well, anyway, Miss Lydia Avaret is a registered dietitian for Nutrition Health Works, and I was actually recommended to see Lydia by you, Cooper, because you knew she was in the building and recommended that I go check her out. So yay to you.
Woo, you're welcome.
Today we wanted to bring her on to give us some expert advice on nutrition and things she's experienced with clients. Some good storytelling there. Are there any trends or surprises that she can reveal when it comes to the difference in eating habits of the generations?
Yeah,
so
thanks
welcome,
so
Lydia.
much for having
Welcome,
me.
Lydia!
Woo!
Some of my favorite people. Karen's definitely my favorite client.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background, where you studied maybe, how you got into wanting to help.
Why nutrition?
Nutrition. There's lots of different fields in fitness and wellness. Why this? All the things.
Yeah, I guess a good starting point would be when I started getting interested in nutrition. So I actually started getting interested in nutrition in high school as a track athlete. I very much had the mindset then that eating less was going to make me better and being skinnier would make me a better runner.
And where did that come from? I'm just curious. Was that just your assumptions from watching different people, or did you read that somewhere?
I think it was the atmosphere of being in
peer pressure,
a sport where you are running in your sports bra and spandex shorts. And that was very much the thought of young girls, starting high school, going through a lot of changes. I think we all had a lot of body image issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that just goes back to also kind of with me as well, with my background in athletics and team sports.
And swimming.
So as millennials, I think we can consider you as a millennial as well.
I am.
We talked about in a previous episode how our generation is a lot more aware of we can do things together as far as like group activities that helps keep us all accountable, because as we're like the active generation, whereas the boomers are a little bit more...
We were not known as the active generation. But look, you
Individual.
guys are actually known as the active generation. 80% of people at gyms in 2023 were millennials. 80%.
I
That's a
did
huge
read
number.
that millennials are the most health conscious, like younger generations are more health conscious. So that will hopefully be a positive thing.
But with your, especially in high school, I'm sure, and as a teenage girl, there's a lot of things besides social media that are causing pressure, especially with body image. So that definitely adds another layer when you're an athlete as well, especially as a runner, because you got to be fairly
You
light.
have to be fueled up, though. How did you learn how to fuel your body?
Yeah, so that was kind of what got me interested in nutrition, was when I started learning about that, because I just assumed that skinnier was better, and I was ultimately forced to have to eat more by my healthcare team. No, by my doctor. I ended up actually seeing a dietitian myself at that age, because I was underweight and needed to gain weight. So, you get ended up getting kind of scared into it, because I was going to have some serious health issues if I didn't start eating more. So,
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we can do a whole episode on just that.
Yeah.
I feel like we maybe in the future.
What was the hardest thing for you to do once you understood what you needed to do? Like, what was the thing they told you to do where you felt like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to be able to eat that much or that many times a day? Or
Yeah. Well, when you are under eating for a long time, your hunger cues actually go away. So it's really hard to start eating enough again because you don't feel like you need it. And then there's the whole cognitive side of that and changing mindsets. So
changing habits.
Yeah, changing habits.
Yeah.
But I think educating myself, and I have always had an interest in science, so I think that kind of helped. But I
like you could put the practicality behind why she's asking me or he's asking me to do these things. It wasn't just like you're being told, like you really like understood, like if I do this, it's because I need it to do all these other things that I want to do.
Right. I think having that background is helpful whenever you're trying to make changes, really. I ended up like buying a book on nutrition and doing my own research online and found it really interesting how much eating enough and eating certain types of foods and certain vitamins make big difference. And I was very performance driven, going to nationals and meets and stuff. So that helped me as well. I think have that extra push when you have like a motivation of.
So that's a huge habit change. What would you say was the timeline where it really became who you were and what you did eating healthy? How long would you put on that you really were just, you had turned that whole corner?
A couple of years, really. See? It was more of a gradual thing. Yeah, it does take time. And there's so much to learn about nutrition too. So that's kind of how I got interested in it, looking into more of it for myself. And then I decided to pursue nutrition as my degree in college and thought I wanted to be a sports dietitian initially because that's kind of how I got into it. The performance side of it.
That would have been fascinating though.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all, especially people who are more active, at a younger age and continue to be active, as we get into our adulthood.
Listen, you guys are way ahead.
We definitely seem to be more motivated to learn for our own performance and our own improvement. And then kind of like you, I was the same, but my direction was more into the strength training and weight training to become a trainer as opposed to becoming more of a nutritionist. So it's interesting how similar
it is.
That kind of
experience. And my direction is just trying to live healthier as I get older. It's just a total different motivation.
And where'd you get your degree from?
I did my undergrad nutrition from NC State.
Go Pack.
And go Pack. And then I did my master's in nutrition at University of Georgia. Go Dogs.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay, so a little interstate. So let's get into a little bit more about the differences you experience with your clients as like an age difference. So like between, boomers and millennials, for example.
I mean, like really we want to know in the human, condition, are there specific habits that you see clients walk in the door with who are in my age group, which is 50s, 60s, and people who walk in at your guys' age group, which is like early 30s, late 20s? Are there specific habits that you see come forward really just based on generation?
Yeah, there's definitely difference in both overall goals and habits and struggles.
So what's the difference in goals?
Difference in goals, I would say I do see people for a variety of different nutrition related reasons. People can come see me for, whether that is gut issues, disordered eating, sports performance, or weight management. So I do see people for a pretty big variety of goals and all ages too. So I actually work with toddlers all the way up to older adults.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So do you help the parents with toddlers?
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I actually work with a lot of kids as well. So I get to kind of see the whole spectrum and a lot of different things. But more specifically, I would say millennials versus boomers.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest reason people would probably see me would be for weight management types of things, but it does look a little bit different in those populations. So I would say millennials tend to have a bigger acknowledgement of the benefits of muscle growth. And so a lot of times they have more of those body composition types of goals.
Wow.
More gains. And is that men and women?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Good. Yes, girls. It's okay to have muscle.
Yeah.
You want muscle. I'm trying to get muscle. After 60, it's the hardest thing to do is get muscle.
It is.
Like I always say to you, I wish we had access to this kind of information 20 years ago. I mean, it's like essential. You know, like muscle takes care of a lot of other issues.
I'm hoping that awareness is getting more out there, and that's why more people are acknowledging that. But I do think the boomer generation I work with, there's a lot more education I have to do on my part.
Nothing.
We don't just want to see the scale go down. We want to focus on building muscle and the importance that
is like
has.
Speaking a different language to us. Like I it's so amazing that, you know, when I'm talking to my peers and my close friends and all, that's not even a part of the conversation when it comes to getting healthier. It's not even a part of the conversation. Walking is a part of the conversation, not drinking as much wine at night and, you know, trying not to eat as much takeout. That's a main part of the conversation, but nothing about building muscle. Literally zero.
Would you say you're a little bit more motivated to make young or older women more aware and accepting that it is okay to build a little muscle and you're not going to look like blocky, and like it's okay if you eat protein, like you're not going to blow up?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I have to remind people of. A lot of women don't really have the drive of aesthetics of the muscle building that men do.
Right.
But it's really even more important for women to focus on that because of the risk we have for osteoporosis and how those strength training that we engage in has not only benefits for muscle health, but bone health and the importance of maintaining functionality as we get older, mobility, preventing, falls.
Yes. That's our biggest fear as we get older. Literally, you cannot believe in 30 years how much you're concerned about falling.
Yeah.
You're not going to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would echo that. I also am a little bit more motivated in the gym to make sure that my female clients are aware and accepting that we're going to lift a little bit heavier weight. It's okay. You're not going to like...
It's good. It's actually good.
Yeah.
Ladies, it's good. This is the boomer over here.
What I tell them is, unless you eat like me, you're not going to look like me. And
that's great advice.
How much,
that's good advice.
I mean, we can, proportionally compared to, different strength ratios, we can train the same depending on our body type and composition. But I feel like there's a lot more emphasis, or not as much emphasis, on how if you don't eat the correct amount to actually recover, you're not going to actually get as much out of it.
Right. And that's something that I love teaching people about as well, is even if your sole goal is to lose weight, you still are going to get so much more out of your exercise and so much more out of the body composition that you want when you do eat enough before and after your workouts. Yeah. And you're going to feel a whole lot better too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like literally, I don't think you can say that enough. Yeah. I truly don't think you can say that enough. That was one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the past 20 months. It was the fueling. Like the fueling of it. You really are fueling yourself to get, where you want to go. Yeah. It's amazing. It changes your whole perspective on everything.
I'm curious, with some of the younger population, like high schoolers, I'm assuming you may train some high school athletes yourself.
Yes.
Do you kind of see yourself still a little bit in some of those clients? Like, do you see some of the problems that you had that they're still
The
experiencing
same
as well?
myths and
I do,
theories.
and it's actually really sad. I'm seeing it, younger. I work with a few middle schoolers, even elementary schoolers who are starting to be active and competitive athletes at that age and already having disordered eating tendencies. And their parents will sign them up to work with
Really?
me. So yeah, it's very eye-opening to see how early that can happen. So it's very rewarding for me to focus on creating that healthy relationship with food and having that understanding of the impact that food has on your body apart from just what you look like. The function that food has is very rewarding for me to try to teach that to young athletes and just young girls and boys in general.
Would you say that social media has accelerated spread the condition,
or the confusion has spread the confusion
to younger people
as to what they should follow? I mean, it gets a lot of information out there. It's confusing.
Yeah, I think you could go into a whole podcast or more on the impacts that social media has on mental and physical health. But yeah, even when I was in high school, social media wasn't big yet.
It wasn't
at all
as deep as it is right now.
No.
So when you talk to them and, when you meet them where they are, what do they say to you about how they think about why they eat what they eat or don't eat what they eat or eat as little as they eat? How do they tell you they even got to the point where they thought that was a good thing?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear around food, and a lot of that confusion comes probably from partially social media and just the society we live in as well. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having weight loss goals or things like that, but when really young kids and teenagers hear that from adults, they think that that's what they should be thinking as well.
Interesting. And they're still developing.
Yeah.
They're long from worrying about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think also in social media there are these challenges or stuff like that. I think there was one a while ago. It was it was a bowl of hummus and then carrots and then broccoli and cheese, and that's all. Then there's the video, this 1 minute video of this girl just eating, that's all she ate for the day, and people were doing that.
Yeah,
that's what I heard. Is there a kind of common fear that people have when they begin to work with you,
or a misconception even of what you can help them with?
Yeah, I do think that by the time most people come see me, they have tried a lot of things before that.
Okay.
Yes.
So, most people, especially if they're seeing me for weight management or weight loss, most people, especially the older you are, the more probably you've tried, but have tried a lot of different fad diets that have worked short term, but not long term. So
truth.
The whole spectrum, low carb, keto.
Whatever was new. Whatever the newest thing was.
Yeah, it used to be low fat, then low carb. These things kind of come in cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And then eggs were okay, and then eggs are not okay, and now they're okay again.
It's just a lot.
That is definitely probably a bigger challenge that especially more of the boomers had, that they've tried so many different things, and so they may be skeptical that something is going to work for them, and it can be hard to trust somebody.
And how much of that conversation is you explaining to them it's about a habit change? The time and the patience that's required to literally shift one piece of what you've been doing for 50 or 60 years.
Yeah.
That's massive. I mean, somebody needs to say that to us boomers, take it easy, take a beat, because this is not an overnight thing. We're so used to the quick fixes, honestly, from everything we've done, that we don't understand that a habit change is a whole different level.
It is. And that's what I'm constantly teaching people who want that immediate gratification, that you do often get temporarily with more of those restrictive types of diets.
Right. I mean, like I see Lydia, and she, you know, I try to tell her I talk myself off the fence all the time when I don't lose for a couple of weeks. It's constantly I have to say to myself, that's okay. You're still doing all the right things, which is the big picture, is to eat healthier. And I literally have to talk to myself all the time about this isn't a hurry up thing. This isn't a hurry up game. This is not what you've done in the past where you've had, you know, meal supplements and you've done intermittent fasting or whatever it is. This is just really learning to eat well and eat in enough of a deficit where my body will burn some fat. It is such a long, slow process. And that's just the reality. You're not doing anything wrong because it's taken some time. And I constantly have to tell her that, you know, she's like my psychologist, honestly, y'all. I sit down, I'm like, I give her I log my food and we do all this stuff. But honestly, she's a little bit of my psychologist because when I walk out of her office, I feel like, okay, you're still okay. You're okay. You're just okay.
You're not the only one there. I mean, food is very emotional to us and our goals are very emotional to us.
When you're dealing with new people coming in, how many of them have said that they were coming in because their doctor or because their trainer or because someone told them to, versus them coming in just because they looked you up and they decided on their own that they wanted a nutritionist? Because you said earlier that, especially in the older people, they had done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, like what drives boomers in versus millennials?
Why?
Like what is their drive? What is the biggest driver of that?
Yeah, I would say boomers are more of the health concerns that their doctor has pointed out. So the heart disease, the diabetes.
Like they're kind of on the cusp of that happening.
So that's definitely those medical issues become more of a reality as you get older.
Oh, yes.
Maybe, hopefully ideally they would come see me as purely preventative, but oftentimes it takes getting the pre-diabetes or the diabetes or, you know, starting to add on more and more medications and being like, okay, I'm ready to
I have to contribute
stop adding on these medications.
Yeah, like I actually have to take an active part in making this better for myself. I could totally see that.
Yeah, so I would definitely say that boomers would be there is more of that versus millennials may be more driven by, there's a bigger interest in other aspects of food in terms of wellness, immune health, prevention, things like that. So it's...
Wow.
Oh, you said prevention. Interesting that...
Yeah, she said the word prevention, whereas it's total opposite for us.
So, I mean, it does kind of line up then that because we see what you guys are doing, because we are the children of boomers.
The information is out there, it's loud, it's clear, it's proven. This is what happens if you do X, Y, and Z, and this is how you can avoid X, Y, and Z. Like now it's so black and white. Whereas I was telling, you know, Cooper 30 years ago, when I got diagnosed with high blood pressure in my 30s, I wasn't overweight or anything. I was just living a normal life, but it was clearly in my family. The only advice I got from the doctor was, just cut out salt. That was literally the one thing he said to me about high blood pressure. I didn't go anywhere and read anything else or understand how much I can include activity into my young life. Because I was saying to him, had I known more back then, I probably would have done better with it, with managing it, you know?
Yeah, I do think part of that has to do with our healthcare system.
It is what it is. They're there to medicate you. They see a problem, they have to cover their behinds. So, you came in my office, we got this diagnosis, we're going to fix it. And that is literally almost how it still is today. So much of the onus about nutrition and prevention is on you.
It is.
But now you can actually go find out. Whereas before you just couldn't find out. There was no internet for all that back when I got diagnosed. Yeah. So
you really have to advocate for yourself when it comes to your health.
Amen.
So because that the younger generations have seen our parents and see the kind of things that a I'm not going to say more of like a lack of awareness of proper nutrition.
The result is all the chronic diseases that we have and our parents even have had.
We are taking a bit more of a proactive approach with our wellness and our health so we can avoid the problems that they're having. I think in our first episode we called it's not so much about staying young, it's more about aging better.
Yeah, aging well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting how the boomers seem to only come to see you after another medical professional has told them to, as opposed to...
Or you just are tired of keep loading on the medications. They don't even tell you to go. They just are like, well, we need to add this pill. Mm-hmm. It literally becomes... Dealing with high blood pressure can be 4 to 5 to 6 medications a day. 5 milligrams of this, 10 milligrams of that, 20 milligrams of that. And then you're like, okay, I got to get this under control. And sometimes they don't tell you to go see anybody. Mm-hmm. You say, I'm so sick of it. Mm-hmm. I was explaining to Lydia a couple of weeks ago, like it's called pill fatigue. Mm-hmm. It is a thing that happens when you take pills for dozens and dozens of years. You literally get pill fatigue. Because,
And I think a similar thing also for me as well in the gym is that all the older population are, tired of being afraid of falling or not being able to keep up with the grandkids.
Oh, it's the worst.
So they come to seek help. So it's interesting how...
I always joke with you, and I joke with my sisters that, like, I'm literally just trying to stay upright. Yeah. And I mean that. Stepping off of a curb, you actually hesitate. Going on, if you travel and you're in Europe and everything's cobblestone and steps, like, you hesitate. Because you're like, my God, like, if I fall, it's going to be bad. So it's just trying to stay upright. So losing weight, strength training, it all contributes to just the quality of how you're aging, of how you're getting older.
So speaking of your current clients, they may be motivated to come see you, but after they've been seeing you for a little while and you're starting to tell them to do things that maybe are changing the way that they are used to doing them, is there any pushback? Like, what are some things that you get the eye roll or the, do I have to?
Yeah, what are the biggest things that people kind of push back on you on?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is people will come in and they're like, I knew you were going to ask me if I did that, and I didn't. It's not so much, I haven't gotten a whole lot of pushback on recommendations that I give. Okay. It's just the ability to follow through with it, and it's often too busy, too much stress, this happened, and then the next week this happened, and then that's why I couldn't do it, and then this happened, and that's why I couldn't do it.
Sounds like your life, Cooper.
You're just repeating everything that I have to do.
But the funny thing is, you said to me how one of the things you get pushback on is logging meals. Yeah. Like which surprised me because it's so helpful for you personally to
Karen, you're an anomaly. Most people are not nearly as diligent as you are.
Why am I going to come sit with you with nothing to show you? Like I always said, if you work with professionals, help them help you. I can't just go sit in her office for 30 minutes to an hour and she can't see anything I've done for the last 10 days. Like, help yourself. Just jot it down.
Well, I also bothered you before about logging your food.
Right. But here's the thing. I was paying you for your advice and guidance. My health plan is paying Lydia. It ain't free. So, I mean, you got to say to yourself at some point, let me help myself with the people who are here trying to help me. It doesn't pay to just show up and they can't really see what you're really doing. Like, be transparent. If you work with professionals, be transparent. It's the best thing I can tell boomers out there. Don't sugarcoat anything.
And speaking of, you said people like you said people, oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. For the amount of people who overlap with people who also have personal trainers, how many of them have said, oh, my trainer told me to do that too? Or, because I often feel like sometimes when they talk to me, they only expect the strength and the weights part. But that's a fraction of the change that needs to happen. Where's nutrition? I try and do my best to know my scope of practice and not give too much
you're good
advice
at that.
Outside of just like macronutrient, but and like track your food and water. But hearing it from like someone who actually has a degree, who's I guess a bit more official than someone like me, like Does that ever happen? Does someone say, "Oh, my trainer told me to do that too, and I didn't"? But you're telling me to do that, so now I'm going to.
Yeah, sometimes it does take multiple times of hearing something to get through.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Absolutely. We could all know what to do. The difficulty is implementing it, right?
Which is part of our job.
Right.
Is the accountability. Okay.
Yeah, figuring out how to work these recommendations into each individual's life and what that looks like and where we're going to start depending on what their lifestyle is currently like, because everybody's in a different place.
But that reminds me of a funny story. When I first started with Cooper, and I went to the to Capitol to strength training with Cooper, and I was standing there one day, and I was like, I was sitting on a bench, and like my belly was all folded over, and I was like, oh my God, look at this belly. And Cooper said, well, that piece is going to be nutrition, and that's all he said. And I wasn't. There was no other conversation. And I held that. I was like, he said it's going to be nutrition. Okay, I'll get to that at some point. I was really new with him. I was like, let me just go one thing at a time. Let me just get up off the floor when he tells me, okay, now you can get up off the floor. That was my biggest focus. But he said that to me very calmly. He says, oh, that'll be nutrition. And I was like, oh, okay. So one day I'm going to have to visit that. And literally, when I shifted, nutrition, and I started counting points originally, even before I saw you, Lydia, and just, the counting the points, and they have all your macros figured out in the point system. And the first part of my body to go down was that belly fat. And I was like, Cooper said to me, that belly fat is the way it'll start to go down is nutrition. Like, we're not going to work that off in here. In this gym, strength training.
Not directly.
Not directly. Like if you want to directly impact it, it is a shift in your nutrition. And it's so funny because it was absolutely spot on. And this is a year later when I finally got to the point where I wanted to really address it. And that was literally what it was going to be. It was not going to be all the things we were doing. It was walking, and it was also, shifting the balance of how I was eating.
Right.
That made all the difference in the world. Ladies out there with the menopause, body, stomach thing, it really is about nutrition. You don't have to be super active to affect that, to address that.
Yeah. Because, I tell clients a lot as well that, in the gym, we're breaking down tissue. We're damaging, right? And when you're at home and eating and recovering, that's when you build and regrow and provide the nutrients you need to actually... stimulate the metabolism, build the muscle, the damaged tissue that you've already, worked in the gym. And also, you're only seeing me maybe 2 hours a week.
Yeah, literally.
The other time, you're eating a lot more than you are working out.
Yeah.
So how are you fueling yourself?
It's a big part of the equation.
Is that something that you have to kind of let people understand? Like, the amount...
It's a big part of it.
Of activity versus the amount of nutrition you need to,
especially the younger kids, they would never know that.
Yeah, definitely we have a lot of research to support you're gonna be most effective long term if you have both those components, exercise and nutrition. But in terms of kind of getting things started and what is gonna play the bigger impact and biggest use of your time and focus is going to be on the nutrition, because you can think about, like, if you do 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week, let's say, you burn 100 calories per 10 minutes of exercise, that's what, 900 calories a week you're burning from that. And that could be one meal that you ate out at a restaurant.
That's right.
So I don't like to think of the benefits of exercise only from calories. I don't think that's very sustainable. Right. So I'm not trying to say it that way, but ultimately that does play a role in, if you have body composition goals, you do have to be mindful of what you're expending versus taking in. So nutrition's definitely an essential piece.
And there's also NEAT as well. You have to consider, sleeping burns calories, breathing burns calories. NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I think I got that right.
Yeah, you did.
So it could be, going to the refrigerator. It could be, walking down the street. All of those activities burn calories just to stay alive, causes you to, consume, the foods that you eat. So exercise comparatively is a smaller portion.
We do have a lot of research to support exercise isn't going to play as big of a role in the initial weight loss.
No.
But maintaining that weight loss long term, exercise is essential because it keeps up your metabolism.
Yeah. You hear that, everybody? When people come to see you, what is the most common thing that they keep secret from you? That if they told you up front, you could really meet them where they were and probably strategize with them a little better.
I think the biggest reason people probably, quit because of like a secret that they're keeping is their expectations that they had in their head in terms of their weight loss goal. So maybe they're expecting to lose 20 pounds in a month or two even. And I'll ask people usually if they have a particular goal weight in mind, and that weight may be like 100 pounds less than what they weigh currently. Wow. And if they're expecting to get there anytime soon.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Yeah. So I think that having to have that conversation of what is like realistic.
You have to kind of pull that out of them. You have to be aware that I really need to find out like the why. And make sure that the why is realistic.
I do think that's important to think about for yourself. I mean, anybody listening to think about the why, like keep asking yourself why. I want to lose weight. Okay, why? Okay. Oh, well, I think that I'll be happier. Why? Keep asking yourself why.
Keep digging down into that.
Until you find, what that root reason is. Yeah. And maybe weight loss isn't even gonna fix that reason. Maybe there's...
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper to find what's really gonna make you happy with, yourself and your health.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you answered it that way, because I think that just reconfirms again why I wanted to do this podcast, to help people who have that secret expectation that they're going to lose 30 pounds in a month after never exercising or keeping track of their food ever.
Yeah.
To understand that, be kind to yourself, because it's going to take longer.
Absolutely.
So all the things we said before about finding things you like, about taking small steps, that even though it's not, training for the Olympics, it's not important. Like, all of those small things will help build a better lifestyle, which is ultimately what will help get you to that 30-pound goal.
Right.
Maybe not in a month.
No.
Maybe
it'll probably be over a year.
Maybe by next Christmas.
Right.
And to be okay with that.
Right. Do the things that are leading you more towards that than away from that.
Yeah.
That's the mindset. It's like, every day am I doing something that's moving me more forward than backwards. One thing you told me a while back last year about something that, will shock you, that people kind of just hold back innocently, is when they tell you they have coffee. And you were like, they don't tell me they're having coffee with 7 sugars. I was like, oh my God, that could be such an innocent slip of mind. It's like, oh, I have coffee every day. Well, coffee can be a lot of different kinds of coffee now. And I remember when you said that, sometimes it takes a while for people you finally say, what is all in your coffee? And they're having 7 sugars and 3 creams. Like, well...
It's also a diuretic. And,
that's a problem.
Can disrupt sleep.
But just something so innocent like that, a person could come in not understanding how much that plays a part in why they might not be seeing progress. It's innocent little things like that. Like people who drink wine every night after work. I know people who have a glass or 2 or 3 every night.
Yeah, alcohol is the hard one.
Alcohol is a tough one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it can play a big difference.
And you think it's as innocent. It's like, well, I'm just drinking something. Like, it's just something I'm drinking. I'm not eating. And it's just that kind of information that, as a boomer, you think is harmless. And that could be a very big part of what's slowing you down or not having you see as much progress. Just those things like that.
Would that be a pushback you get from older people? Is the drink less?
Yeah,
or do you give
alcohol's a hard one.
Or do you just get it from everybody? Millennials,
from everybody.
Y'all, listen.
it kind of is different because I would say millennials, they're more drinking on the weekends socially.
Okay.
Socially.
And that's really hard to give up.
Thank you.
Where we're drinking for stress.
Where you're drinking as a habit.
It's a habit.
Almost every day sometimes.
Literally can be 6 days a week.
Yeah, just they
Right.
both have their own challenges. I mean, to tell somebody young to stop drinking as much when that's like such a big of their social life, or somebody who's relying on alcohol for stress relief.
Well, speaking of you know, things that people are reluctant to do or change, when I had first started out, you know, training, I didn't really pay attention to the food I ate in college. I kind of just ate whatever I wanted. It's intuitive eating. And then I was watching, you know, fitness YouTubers on YouTube, like Scott Herman was kind of the first one. He was like, you know, when people come up to him and, you know, they're like, oh, like, what do you bench or squat? And he asks them, well, what are your macros? And they don't have an answer. So it's interesting how someone like him, who is a professional trainer, doesn't really care how much they lift. He cares about how much they're eating and what they're eating. And I knew that, but I didn't want to acknowledge the importance of that because I knew that that would require an extra level of effort and work.
Yes.
So it was the price of that level of attention and care for my goal. I wasn't willing to pay that yet until several years later, around the pandemic time, when I had hired my own dietitian coach and had put on more weight in 2 years.
Oh, well, didn't we all? Welcome.
Well, okay, okay, muscle.
Okay, you put on muscle weight. The rest of us put on fat.
I mean, I gained like 15 pounds of muscle in like a year or so. And that was more than I'd ever gained in the previous 8 or 10 years that I was weight training. Just because I had changed my nutritional habits and I actually started tracking and becoming more specific with what I was eating. So,
can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, go for it.
When you started tracking, what did you notice from that?
I was not eating enough.
Okay.
So interesting.
So as
say that again.
I wasn't eating enough.
You weren't eating enough.
Yeah. So as I mentioned in a previous episode, I'm considered a hard gainer. So I come from a family of runners and distance athletes. So, and I swam, and that's obviously a high calorically expenditure sport. So it's hard for me to naturally hold on to weight. My metabolism just lets me, you know, burn it away. So I have to consciously eat a lot more. And I'll get a little bit more into the struggles of that. I know people are probably throwing their phones at the thing about the struggles of eating more. But I mean, yeah, there were like nights where I was like 10 o'clock and I was like, I have to finish this because I have to hit all my calories today or I'm not going to get the weight goal that I want.
But understanding your macros is what helped you understand how important it was to know that. So can you give the description of macronutrients?
Yeah, so macronutrients, and if you want to give any more detail, you can.
Yeah,
but
for people who don't know, I was intimidated to even learn this. I thought it was going to be something so scientific and over my head, and it's not. Lydia finally convinced me to track my macronutrients. It's a very simple thing to understand. Don't be afraid of this, folks.
So the macronutrients are comprised of carbohydrates, fats, and protein. And added together, they equal the amount of total calories you should be eating a day, whether it's, you know, maintenance, you know, surplus or deficit, depending on if you want to lose or gain weight. Everyone has different macros.
For everybody at every stage of life. They change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't even want to learn about this for probably almost 2 years into becoming healthier and working with Cooper and strength training. You know, one day he said macronutrients to me and I just like, okay, let's, you know, you spoke Latin, so let's just talk about something else. Like the whole term of it was like, I can't embrace that right now. I'm just trying to do these things over here with you. But
well, and as you just heard, I was the same way.
As a professional.
However, I kind of hit that point on my own when I realized I wasn't getting the goals that I needed, and you needed a little bit extra.
And the same thing happened to me when I wasn't getting the goals that I needed for losing weight. I really needed to like dig deeper and do specifically what my body was going to require me to do.
Yeah.
So it's just good information. Don't be afraid of it.
For me and my clients, I emphasize macros over calories because I feel like they inform a little bit more of what they're actually eating as opposed to just sort of the general scope of what a calorie is. Because you can be hitting your calories, but you can be, maybe eating more fat than you do protein. And protein obviously will help contribute to more muscle gain.
So I take a very individualized approach in my personal practice. So I like to kind of gauge where people are in terms of their knowledge, what their mindset is around calories and macros. What's their history with that? Have they tracked before? What was their experience with that? So that's usually kind of where I start. And I do have some people who are very opposed to tracking and don't want to do that. I still am going to have to give some education on the different macros, because even if you're not tracking, I'm going to be asking you what you ate. Maybe we do pictures and I just look at pictures of what you had, and I'm going to be like,
cool. That's cool.
That's a good idea.
That's nice.
So I do pictures with some people who don't want to track tediously.
Okay.
But speaking of logging and tracking food, how much, if you had to put a percentage on, like how much easier or faster someone progresses who's logging versus someone who's not when they come for your services to talk to you? Like, what would you say from a 1 to 10, someone who's tracking where you can look at reality with them and talk how much better they might be doing for someone who's just verbally trying to remember what they ate yesterday?
Yeah, I will say in terms of thinking through clients I've had who have had really great success versus those who have struggled more, a lot of it does come down to how much time and effort you're willing to put into it. And part of that is the tracking. It does definitely help, because then I can be like, I can give more of those little tweaks of like,
you see patterns and you can see, because I know like with me, you were like, you can get more protein in when just attach it to your snack. Because I like certain proteins like cottage cheese. Cooper always gags, but I love cottage cheese. And you were like, so when you have your 1 ounce of nuts, have some cottage cheese. Like, because you could see like that was a place for me to really get in what I was missing.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful, and you can be more precise. I like to be more precise when I can, but for those who don't want to do that, I still work with that. I try to at least get them to do pictures so I can estimate and talk about portions. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it depending on what you're willing to invest.
It's important to understand that, there will be some things as you go into this more habit change that you will find uncomfortable. I will tell my clients that technically they don't really need to even darken a gym doorstep for them to actually lose weight. How much, based off what we just talked about, how much of that, initial loss could come just from changing the way you eat?
You can have the recommended amount of, usually in terms of recommended rate of weight loss, I'll recommend somewhere between 1/2 pound to 2 pounds a week as a goal. 2 pounds is pretty ambitious for,
that's good.
That's, some people think they want to lose 5 pounds in a week, and to lose 2 pounds a week, you have to be in 1,000 calorie deficit a day. So
that's a lot.
That's a lot. So that's definitely the max I would recommend. But you can achieve anywhere from usually between 1/2 pound to 1 pound a week is what I recommend. And you can definitely achieve that just through nutrition. So when we are picking a place to start, I'll usually start with nutrition. And then as I'm working with people, we continue to build on things. So if they're not already exercising, then eventually I will get to exercise and including that. But if we're going to start with one thing, you can still see weight loss and health benefits just from the nutrition side. But of course, I do want people to be active as well.
And like when she said, we'll start with one thing and go on to the next thing, that next thing might be a year later. Like this really is that type of time you need to put in your mind that's going to take for you to change. Like it's, you got to kind of master one thing at a time, and whatever time frame that takes you. If it's getting in your right calories or your right macros for a year, that is fantastic. Then the next year, maybe you try to walk 5,000 steps a day. But it is really that kind of span of time that you should just be mindful of and have a lot of patience with yourself. It's all worth it. But you got to undo all your thinking. All the thinking of everything needs to be quick, fast, in a hurry. Like you said, people want to lose 5 pounds a week. Yeah, okay. But what if it doesn't stay? Like it never, as fast as that goes, it comes right back when you haven't shifted all the things around it, you know? So it really is a big picture kind of moment. And particularly I'm talking to baby boomers. We have a lot on our plates now. I mean, at this point in life, people are typically at the height of their careers, grandparents, putting kids through school, lots going on. But just taking the time to focus on one piece of a habit it's a big deal that it can make for you in 12, 18 months. I lost 20 pounds in like 19 months. It was just about a pound a month. I was thrilled with that. I was good. I was cool with that because I was losing. Back, 25, 30 years ago, sure, I was losing, like Lydia said, I'd be 2 pounds a week, but I was also 30 years younger and life was just different. So it's just keep everything in perspective. Like, don't let anything just overwhelm you where you stop all the pieces of it. I was talking to Cooper about the month of January. I think I have like seasonal blues or depression or something. 3 years ago, in January, whenever I got down and out about something wasn't happening fast enough, I would stop every piece of that thing I was doing. Whether it was meal planning, drinking water, taking a walk, I would just stop everything when I wasn't happy. If nothing's working, I'm stopping everything. Well, now if I get kind of frustrated with myself or feel down and out that things aren't moving as quickly as I want them to, I might drop one piece of it. It's very interesting. I will not stop moving my body because the benefits are too tremendous. I won't stop hydrating because, again, that plays such a huge part in all of it. I'll make sure I get 8 hours of sleep. And I just might not be meal planning. I might just be kind of eating a little willy-nilly. And that's okay. That's one part of it. But I don't let all the pieces fall anymore. And that's to me is progress.
Question for you. Where do you think that comes from? Do you think that comes from you seeing other benefits of those changes outside of just the weight?
It comes exclusively from the other benefits. From the strength that I have in my body, how my clothes look now. It comes from all the other benefits for when all the pieces are working together. Awesome. But sometimes I'm a little just not into it. But I don't drop everything anymore. I'm not that girl anymore. I don't just stop the whole ball from rolling. I mean, part of the ball might deflate and then I pick it back up, but I don't let everything fall like I used to. And that to me was so huge over the last 2 years.
Well, I know you guys are always talking about the stages of change, and that's what you're talking about. Yeah. One of the stages is relapse.
And that's why I always say it's going to be a roller coaster. It is up and down and all over the place. But when you keep going back, and you keep going back, and you keep going back, it becomes more of what you do than what you don't want to do. Because you're like, well, that's who I am now. That's who I am. That's what I do now.
So what would be some of the common things that you see people tell you when they want to stop seeing you? Or what's the subtext under that? What are they not telling you?
I do think a lot of it comes down to the expectations, that need for immediate results. Again, kind of comes down to having a realistic expectation from the beginning. Did
you learn that you needed to set those after trial and error? Like when you were new at this, did you not realize how important it was for you to set expectations right out the gate? Was that like a curve for you when you started working?
Yeah, it's all been
everyone?
Kind of a learning experience of working with different people and kind of learning behavior and thought processes. And one thing that I like to do to kind of help mitigate that and also focus on that improvement with a healthy relationship with food and long-term thinking is I really like to also bring in those non-scale victories and focusing on those. So how has adding more fruits and maybe adding more fruits and vegetables into your diet hasn't resulted in immediate weight loss? I wouldn't really expect it to, but I am going to ask, how is your energy? How's your sleep? How's your digestion? It's like, oh, I just feel so much better. Like, that's huge. I think when we can focus on those things outside of the scale and the other benefits of eating overall
of
healthier diet, that's what keeps you going. And that's kind of what I was curious if that was part of you being able to always kind of get back on and maintain it. Is. I
just look in the rearview mirror and I'm just like, dag, last summer you felt great, you looked great, your clothes were great. You're not throwing all this away. You really worked so hard to just get to this point. Yeah, you're having a bad week or whatever. Okay, it happens. You're human. You know, you don't feel like meal planning. You don't feel like tracking. You know, okay, I know I'm not going to not ever do it again. I'm just not going to do it right now. And just giving yourself that permission, or as people were saying now, giving yourself that grace to just press pause on it all. Because it's a lot of things that you've worked on. And some days you just don't want to. And that's all right. It'll pass. Because it's your habit that stays.
Right.
Developing those habits. It's the habit that stays.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to hear as they're going through action and into maintenance that these kinds of small little victories are important.
They're big.
So they may not be, result in immediate weight loss.
Yep.
But you may be sleeping better. You may actually enjoy the taste of fruits and vegetables again, or have never done before. I think I told one client, like, go take a cooking class or something. If you don't like vegetables, well, go learn how to cook them they taste good.
Right.
I mean...
And that can be a fun thing to do.
And it can be a social thing, speaking of millennials.
Yes.
We like to do things together and whatever. And you can maybe bring your roommate or your friend or whoever and be like, hey, I want to go to a cooking class. Do you want to come with me? Because then you have someone who's expecting to go with you.
Yeah.
And if you cancel on them or you flake... well, then you're letting yourself down, right?
Yep.
But if they flake, then you can still go.
Yeah.
Right? So I think
that's a good tip.
A lot of us, we like having that companionship because it helps make sure that we both do it. So I think it's important to know.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I like that.
You're welcome.
Very good.
If you can make vegetables fun,
or even tasty,
you're doing great.
That's right.
Make them tasty.
I mean, and speaking of social media and the internet, like there's so much out there in the whole realm of cooking and videos that
10-minute meals, 15-minute meals that are fabulous.
I mean, you can YouTube like how do I make Brussels sprouts
5-ingredient meals,
and you'll find so much out there.
It's just a different world. I love it.
The important thing is just to know the question you want and then know how to phrase it and then be open to actually, doing it.
Yeah. Calories are just as important for someone in the beginning as layering macronutrients if they feel like that's kind of over their head right now.
Yeah,
you
can always start.
Good idea.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, they're all going to come into the picture.
Sure.
It's just whether I tell them I'm paying attention to their calories or macros, or whether they're aware of it.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing, as a fellow fitness professional, how do you work with other trainers or nutritionists as well? Are you kind of like a solo thing? Like, how do you integrate with the other health professionals in your clients' lives?
Yeah, I have worked with some trainers. I think it's great to collaborate and, both outside of one-on-one counseling, just talking about things, but then, also sometimes I have a trainer or two who are interested in learning more about nutrition or their metabolism, and so
they're continually trying to learn also.
If you've taken the action phase and you have hired a trainer or a nutritionist, ask them, hey, is there anyone in your network who who can help me with nutrition? Or hey, is there a trainer because you came with me to Capital because Maddie from Stretch Lab
recommended. Listen, ask people who are doing the things you want to do, who they know and who they like that are doing those things. I think that helps cut through a lot of, uncertainty.
One of the really important things as I went through trainer school, quote unquote, is to have a network of local professionals as well, and to have as extensive as one as you can, because then you can always refer. And that's a huge lifeline, because at least then we keep clients with people who know each other. And they're
that's pretty cool.
They're more likely to trust the other professionals.
Yes.
because the person they already know and have a rapport with also trusts and knows them.
Yeah. That was literally what I did. Like Maddie was fantastic at Stretch Lab, and she was like, I know Cooper, check, call him up, make an appointment. And I was like, I went and met Cooper. I was like, well, he seems nice enough. I'll give it a shot. And if I didn't like him, I would just go to somebody else. But it was like, she knew me well enough at that point to know that I probably would 9 times out of 10, be okay going with you for a trainer. And then right away you recommended Lydia. So that does really help.
Because I had worked with her. Mm-hmm. And I liked what I got.
that's what it's all about.
So, yeah.
But I just want to brag on you for a little bit about how much you are dedicated to logging.
Oh, yay, please do.
And he's a professional, but not all professionals do everything by the book. We're Fitness pals. And some little badge or reward came up about, your friends when you're doing outstanding things. And it was like, Cooper Howe has logged his meals for the last 368 days. I was like, oh my God. What? I was like, well, dang, he's not messing around. But it's now a habit for him. Like, right. It's good, bad, or indifferent. It's what you do. And not just because you're professional, but it is just what you do because you have goals and things you're trying to achieve. And it makes a difference.
Every day was not easy.
Oh, God, no. Sometimes you're just like, let me go ahead and log this in. Because sometimes you don't like what you're logging either. You're just like, I don't want to see this in print.
Yeah.
What I did.
Well, it really helps. Oh, and actually you can jump into about, it really helps if you meal prep. Is that a recommendation that you give? And
But see, now that can blow someone right out of the water too.
How would you
You're talking about meal prep? You're like, what?
How would you phrase or give someone a strategy to help with like meal prep or like food and like prep in general?
So usually what I do first is ask them what they're currently doing for meal planning. I'm like, so what are you doing for meal planning?
You get there. That's interesting.
I don't.
It's usually like
she's the word planning.
Like it's usually not much. I'll kind of go through different options. There are different meal prep sounds very daunting to a lot of people. But it doesn't have to be what you see on social media with all of the little Tupperware containers filled up your fridge.
See, that looks just so neat to me and so nice. I'm really bad at it too, by the way. I don't want to make it sound like I'm good at it. I am really bad at it. So that's why I know how important it is because I know how hard it is. Yeah. But it's so important if you're at least somewhat aware. My other coach, dietitian coach, who lives in Texas, he gave me the idea to not necessarily have actual meals, but like the ingredients of different meals and then kind of mix and match depending on what my macros needed.
To have your proteins cut up and your veggies cut up and then you can just...
Or your meat's already ready in portion.
Like
so it just made it a lot less difficult.
Because I always try to do it by actual meals and then that day I don't want to eat that thing.
Because then you can.
So I like that idea a lot. Then
you can be more flexible.
Yeah, I usually just call it batch prep.
Batch prep.
Pick a carb, a protein, and a vegetable. Make a couple of each, and then put them together, mix and match. Have some different sauces.
See, look at that.
Yeah.
Look what we're learning still. I used to be a weight loss counselor for many years back in the day, and when it came to logging or journaling, we always had this thing we'd ask our clients, we'll say, if you bite it, you write it. And they could kind of keep that in their head because they would just think they would come and sit in the lobby and try to fill out their journal for the whole week right before they were about to sit with you. And it was just like, and then they're like, I don't remember what happened that day. I don't remember what happened. So if you write it, if you bite it, you write it. And that really helped a lot of people kind of go, you know what? Because sometimes they want to leave out the things that weren't necessarily on a program they were following. Who cares?
Yeah.
Just put it there. It helps you see patterns. It helps you see behavior. It just helps you see why you're so hungry because the rest of the day was blank. And you're trying to put it all in at the end. So logging is a good idea. If you can get yourself to that point where you're comfortable, write stuff down, definitely write it down. It helps you and it helps the person who's guiding you.
If you bite it, you write it.
If you bite it, you write it.
Love that.
Anything else that we should know?
Closing thoughts?
Or what would you tell someone who is just trying to figure out how to just be better with nutrition? What's some just general things you would just say?
So they've done the preparation, right? They are entering the action phase. So they have initiated the things that they have prepared for. what's something that you may, recommend them do as they're going through into maintenance?
Yeah, I would say to focus on one small thing, because nutrition can be very overwhelming. So I would encourage everybody to pick one small thing that they can do to add in to their diet, whether that comes from you're eating no vegetables in a day. Let's say I'm going to add 1 serving of vegetables every day, or, focus on something positive. I'm going to try to drink 16 more ounces of water each day. I'm going to add fruit to my breakfast every day. Something like that and feels
do that
very
for a
positive.
Long time.
Yeah.
Like, not just thinking you're going to have it, you're going to keep doing it one week and it's going to naturally happen the next week, but just be mindful. Like, I'm going to eat an apple with my lunch every day.
Yeah.
Or grapes or whatever. Mm-hmm. That little stuff, because then after a while it just becomes what you do.
Yeah. There are so many positive things that food does for our body that we can add in, and we hear so much about low this, low that, cut this out, cut that out, this food is bad for you, but we need a variety of foods to get all the nutrients that our body and our gut health needs. And so if there's one extra thing positive that you can add in, I think that's a great place to start.
Lydia, tell folks how they can connect with you. You're here in Raleigh, North Carolina. How can people reach out to you, schedule with you? Because your company does accept different health plans. So there's lots of different ways they can set up.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I do see people anywhere in North Carolina via telehealth or in person. So even if you're not in Raleigh, you can still get plugged in. And we do accept health insurance too. So we could always see if that covers, or if you don't, we still have self-pay options. Probably the easiest way to reach out would be to go to nutritionhealthworks.com. That has a lot of information on all the different services that we offer, and you can submit an inquiry there. Or if you want to reach out to me directly, probably email would be the easiest. It's lydia.a@nutritionhealthworks.com.
So that's how you guys can hit her up if you want to work with Lydia. I recommend her. Cooper recommends her. If you're in the Raleigh area, just go for it.
Absolutely. And we usually end each episode with a quote, and we want you to read the quote for everybody.
Ooh, you don't need to eat less. You just need to eat right.
Woohoo! It's been awesome having you here.
Yeah,
I really mean that.
Fun.
This has been a good conversation.
That was really good.
I hope y'all enjoyed this. Having Lydia, this has been awesome. Okay, so that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to the 4th episode of You Want Me to Do What? With Karen
and Cooper. And you can find me, Cooper, on Instagram at @the_dragon_fitness.
And you can find me, KK, on Instagram at winkwink854.
If you're loving the podcast, we'd be honored if you'd go ahead and like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If at any point in this episode you related to something we talked about, we'd love to hear from you. So please share your story in the comments on YouTube, or drop a line on our Instagram post for this episode.
So until next time, we'll say goodbye for now. This is KK.
This is Cooper.
Bye!
Bye.